people that were born into it sometimes don't realize, like, I'm moving away from a lot of stuff to embrace a brand new way of life. I go, what do you do? And he's like, just open your mouth and start babbling, and the Spirit will know what you're saying. And I'm like, what?
Best. That was the most mishandled thing, and it was because culture was allowed to influence doctrine instead of doctrine influencing culture. And that's how we got the stupid curse of Cain in the first place.
Oh my gosh. The doctrine of the Trinity, I kind of thought about it, but didn't really put a whole lot of stock into it. And so
no!
So
you are not just stepping on landmines.
No, I am.
You are stomping on landmines.
Look, man.
You know, you hear people say like, oh, well, I'm lucky I'm not an addict. BS. You ever tried to quit sugar?
It's rough.
All of the scriptural references used in this episode will be brought to you by scripturenotes.com. For a free trial to Scripture Notes, please visit the link in the description. Hey guys, before we start the video, don't forget we only got about a week left for you to buy your advanced copy of the Antichrist Playbook by Jeff Borders. I actually got to write the foreword of this book, so I'm really excited to see what you think. So make sure you check out the links in the description below at plainandpreciouspublishing.com to get your copy of the book, tickets to the launch event, and even a free shirt. Also, big shout out to the people that have been helping out with the Amazon wish list. Looks like we got our USB-C cables to USB-A adapters, which we needed. And thank you very much, Court, for hooking us up with those. Your contributions are greatly appreciated. So remember, the Antichrist Playbook, the Amazon wish list, you can do no wrong with either one of these. Now roll tape. Cool shirt, bro.
Thanks.
Yeah. I see you got the merch we sent you.
That's right.
Yeah, awesome. So, I got a question, man.
Hit me.
Like, you just made me think about this. So, what's it like converting from mainstream Protestant Christianity to all of a sudden, quote, Mormonism, end quote, the Church of Jesus Christ, a Latter-day Saints? Like, what's that like? And what did you think of garments? Like, I just thought of that when I saw you in our merch shirt.
That's a great question.
You know, when I saw you in the merch shirt for Ward Radio, I was like, what's it like being in the merch shirt for Mormonism, right? I don't want to be disrespectful, all right? But it's just you know?
So what is it like converting? I had my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, super supportive, but it is extremely lonely. And I don't think that they tell you that. Because
really? How so?
People.
Oh, did you have family that like dismissed you because of it?
So my immediate family, my parents were very supportive of me. I had some aunts and uncles that were very supportive of me.
Okay.
I had some friends and some other family members who were not so supportive.
Well, what's that mean? That's a pretty wide spectrum, right?
I mean, and so I had some that threatened to disown me.
What?
And some
disown you from what? First off, a cousin doesn't give you like a inheritance.
True, no. I think like you're not my family anymore. And some that didn't come to our wedding. So it was rough, and it's lonely, and they don't tell you that.
I am so sorry. They wouldn't come to your wedding because of this?
Yeah. Wedding reception, right? It was like, I don't know if they were mad because at the time you couldn't get married and then get sealed in the temple right after, right? The rules have changed, but we would have had to wait a year to do the civil thing or get married civilly, wait a year to go to the temple. We didn't do that. We did it all in the temple at the same time. I don't know if it was an offense thing, whatever.
Like when I hear that, see, it's things like that make me just think like, Mormon church, please stop trying to be associated with these Christians. They're not Christians, they're Christianists. Like their Protestantism has become such a false idol that they are willing to literally persecute a people because of it. They and I always say this to them, we are at worst your Samaritans. And who is the person that actually showed Christ-like love to the man who fell victim of thieves? The good what?
Samaritan.
Yeah, was it the good Presbyterian?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's the thing. So like later, family members apologized to me, but it hurt.
Now, do you think that was just their unique issue And it was a personal issue, or do you think it was a cultural issue of North American Protestantism? Because I hate it when people conflate personal bad personalities with Mormon culture, and I don't want to do that to other people.
No. So I think for the family members, that was a personal issue. I think it was an offense that there wasn't a wedding ceremony that they could come to. They could come to a reception.
It wasn't because they'd had their head filled with a bunch of
no
anti-Mormon garbage.
I don't think so for them, but I did have friends who were very much like, you're gonna go to hell. I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. Like, I don't know what they thought was going to happen to me when I got dunked in the water. Like, all of a sudden I'd sprout horns, or I don't know. Like, people thought I was gonna change, and I didn't change. I'm the same person. I may be a little bit kinder than I was before, a little bit more charitable.
Okay.
That has also come with age, I think. But I didn't change. My personality didn't change. And to be quite fair, like, I don't even know that my personal religious views changed that much, because I think that I was already believing some Latter-day Saint theology before I even got there.
Really? Like what?
So, and I don't know where this came from. My dad swears that it came from our grandmother, but the doctrine of the Trinity, I kind of thought about it, but didn't really put a whole lot of stock into it. And so when
no!
So
you are not just stepping on landmines.
No, I am.
You are stomping on landmines.
Look, man. So my great grandmother was a member of the church, and she went inactive. And so somewhere along the way, the doctrine of the Godhead, like, trickled down through our family. So my dad doesn't believe in the Trinity. He believes in three separate beings. And so I think that somehow was imbued in me. And even though I went to a Presbyterian church.
By the way, can we just start saying and normalizing he doesn't believe in the unbiblical Trinity?
Correct. And if you have a conversation with him today, he's like, I don't know where I got that from. I thought it was from my grandmother. So when my wife and I were talking about it, and she went on to explain the view of the Godhead as three separate beings and Joseph Smith's vision, it was like, yeah, duh. Like, she explained it, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can shift out of this other paradigm so fast, because it was almost like I had heard it before, and it just resonated with me, and I was like, okay. And so that was one thing. Also, the doctrine of predestination in Calvinism never made sense to me. Like,
really?
Never made sense to me. And here's the thing. I bet if you
don't think Anne Frank was sent to this world to suffer at the hands of the Germans in order to show glory to God, like that didn't.
That seems a little arbitrary.
Mass starvation in the Holodomor wasn't some, like, trophy on the mantelpiece of Jesus.
Not my thing.
Yeah.
So, and I think the thing is, if you were to, maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but if you were to poll the people that I went to church with, the discussions that are deep-rooted Calvinism never came up at church. Like, Presbyterians were started by John Calvin, right? But what we were taught on Sunday...
Really?
Yeah, what we were taught on Sunday was be good, do good. That was it. You didn't get into discussions on Trinity. You didn't get discussions on... and maybe that's just a function of where I was, where I lived.
No, but it's that way in our church as well. People all the time say, well, do you know in the Mormon church they teach you that you're going to have thousands of spirit babies on a planet named Kolob? And it's like, no, we don't. Like, we come to church, and first off, we're happy if you show up on time. Second, we say, okay, let's talk about patience today, brothers and sisters.
You don't know that every Sunday we're talking about Kolob? What are you talking about?
It's serious. It's like... Okay.
Which joke? I got to tell you this jokingly. So when I was in a bishopric, I submitted. So I was in charge of making talks, like assigning talks.
Okay.
And so I jokingly gave the bishop a list of the talks for the month, and one was like, what happens if you hide a Kolob, and like all these, just straight up things that people mock us over. And he looked at it, and I think he thought I was serious for a moment, but then realized I was totally messing with him, like Bigfoot Cain, blah, like speak on that. Adam God doctrine. Like, he's like, I'm like, no, I'm not serious, man. I'm just totally messing with you. So.
Okay, I got one question.
Oh, did you want me to answer about the garments?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then I got another question. I forgot.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Not weird for me at all.
Really?
Yes. And I'll tell you why. And I don't, this is something that I always wore kind of a boxer and an undershirt anyway. So switching over to garments really was not a hard.
Well, I get the personal convenience aspect, but I'm saying doctrinally.
Oh, doctrinally, no, because I don't know. There was something about the ritual of it just resonated with me. Was not a problem.
You know, it's very interesting you say that, because I remember as a young man when, you know, you're coming up on temple endowment age and everything like that. I remember I would always think long and deep about a lot of these things. And I know that's hard for people to believe. They think I'm some surface level joker, right? But I remember just kind of like thinking for hours, even as a young man, just like testing the plan of salvation, if there was like some hole in this, right? And not finding it and thinking, wow, this really is the best system that really does give everybody a chance. Everybody ultimately gets equal footing. Everybody has redemption. Wow, this is really interesting. And I also remember thinking about the temple, like, is this really just the weird crap that everybody says it is, and so on and so forth? But I said, you know, this is actually probably one of the only civilizations in all human history that has lacked widespread religious ritual. In the Roman Empire, nobody thought it was odd to go to a temple of Zeus. We were building them in every single major city. In fact, the cities were oftentimes named after the patron god of the temple in their town. There were altars in every little home. The Greeks worshipped, the Hindus worshipped, and we were talking profound religious pilgrimages, clothing, classes of priest, high priest. In Catholicism, oh my gosh, like an army, everything from altar boy to deacon to, you know, bishop, cardinal, archbishop, finally popes, and so on and so forth. I'm sure I got those out of order. But I remember thinking that this kind of secularized, atheistic post-war America is actually the exception to the rule, not the rule. And we're missing out on religious ritual.
Yeah, and I think so for me, the church that I went to, and you got to understand in Presbyterianism, and it might be the same way in a lot of different religions, you can have lay pastors or you can have ordained ministers. And sometimes they would dress in different garb depending on whether they were a lay minister or an ordained reverend. And so seeing religious garb wasn't a big deal. We had regular times and seasons in the liturgical calendar where we would celebrate certain things certain times of year. So these ritualistic patterns actually were comforting and familiar to me even when I went through the temple. Now, when I went through the temple, I don't think my temple prep was fantastic. I don't think, and I don't want to blame anybody, but it seemed to me like no one wanted to really tell you what.
Well, no, because also Utahns had enjoyed so much just education through familial absorption that for people in the diaspora that were actually needing preparation, because this isn't our culture. Like, there's not a temple on every corner. And
that's where the loneliness came in. So the loneliness to me was you can be there with so many people, but I'm stepping into a new culture, new doctrines, new rituals, everything, and I'm absorbing that like through a fire hose. And the people that were born into it sometimes don't realize, like, I'm moving away from a lot of stuff to embrace a brand new way of life. I'm not just picking up a religion here. I'm dedicating myself to something, and that can be extremely humbling. And I think that's scary to some converts when they first, I think that's why you see people join and then never come back, because you're like, whoa, what did I just get into? Like, this
interesting. Okay.
And the only way to get around that for me was that I had support with me. My wife, my brother-in-law, like all these different people who kind of surrounded me and said, we'll walk with you as you do this. So,
okay.
And that kind of led me to, so you want to go back to the temple aspect. So our son went through the temple. So he wanted to go through the temple before he left for BYU.
Oh,
so
overachiever.
He turned 18. He went through the temple, left to go down to BYU.
Huh.
His mission was that he was going to go to the temple every week while he was in school, and he did it until he left on his mission. But one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to give him the temple prep that we never
I'm
had.
like thinking, dude, I went once in the past twice in the past 60 days. I'm doing pretty awesome.
No,
Like,
he made me look bad. But I was like, you know what?
seriously.
I'm not going to do to him what I thought like I needed. So I actually developed a temple prep course for our family, and we used it, and then our ward adopted it. So our ward adopted this temple prep plan because the church is currently redoing the Endowed on High manual, because if you look at the one, it's from like the 80s.
Oh, it's pathetic.
Yeah, it doesn't
I
have...
shouldn't say pathetic.
Not
I'm
pathetic,
sorry.
but it's missing a lot of the newer, updated, hey, here's all the videos that you can go watch, here's the pictures. And we went into depth with my son, and he said when he went through for the first time, he's like, it wasn't as overwhelming as what you said it was going to be, because I think we talked about it enough.
Oh, interesting.
And then because of that, he has developed such a love for the temple, which now he's in a country where he doesn't have access to a temple. And it's going to be a while before he gets to a temple. So I think he's missing it a little bit.
Okay.
But we bred that into him early, I guess.
Okay,
So-
cool. I like we bred that into him.
Yeah.
Like that's you know what I'm saying? Just like he was
And honestly,
inculcated.
I'm super open with our kids about everything. Like we were probably more like, hey, dude, we're going to be open about this, and we're just going to talk about it. Like, and
I think most people are. This idea that
and-
somehow we're closed about these things is just so silly and stupid, and it's an
and I think that's
anti-Mormon
probably
trope.
just a function of me asking a lot of questions when I joined the church. And I'm like, dude, if you have any questions, just talk to me. Like, I'll try my best to answer. I may not answer it correctly,
Yeah.
but I'll do my best.
So, was there anything that like stuck in your mind, or like was a little bit jarring when you like got baptized or incorporated into the culture? Where it's like, okay, that's weird, or were you just like, oh, that makes sense? Like, was there anything that just like, was there anything that you thought was awesome that you didn't expect that you saw coming, and anything that you thought was freaking weird that you didn't see coming?
Oh my
Any of those
gosh.
two?
I'd have to think back, right? This was 24 years ago.
Well, you were an
28.
elder in the Presbyterian Church. I mean, that's not nothing.
So, weird. What was weird? to
Anything
me?
weird, or was it not? Because for me, I don't think there's really too much too weird about it.
I wouldn't say there's anything weird.
I live in LA. Like,
Okay,
I mean, you want to
I
tell me
wouldn't say
weird?
there isn't anything weird, but I think coming from the outside, I end up questioning a lot. Why are we doing this the way that we're doing it?
Uh-huh.
And if somebody can give me a reason, whether I agree with it or not, I'll at least understand why.
Okay, like what? Like what?
I don't know, like just like things at church, like why does mutual, why do we have to rotate? We rotate every year with the other ward. I'm like, why are we rotating mutual nights in our building?
Oh.
And we rotate on this, like, it's just like these traditions that get in that no one ever wants to question. And I'm like, well, we've just done it that way the whole time. And I'm like, okay, but.
Well, I think it's because for some families, Wednesday night's more of a burden than Tuesday night.
And it
so,
can be, yeah.
Yeah, there's.
But I don't know that I think anything really struck me as weird. I don't know that I've ever thought that it was weird. Even when I learned about baptisms for the dead, and like none of that, it didn't strike me as weird. And I don't know if I was just prepared beforehand or what, but
All right,
Spirit
cool.
was strong. I can tell you what I found weird when I went to a Pentecostal church when the when the pastor told me to try to get me to speak in tongues.
Really?
Yeah. So I had tried out a Pentecostal youth group, and they were standing up. You know, they've got the rock band going,
Dude,
and
cool.
he's like, "All right, just speak in tongues." And he's like, "I don't even want to try to repeat it because it was like just gibberish." And he,
Well,
and he
how
goes,
do you know?
And he goes,
It might
I
have
don't
been
know.
like ancient
he goes,
Assyrian, bro.
He goes, what? I go, what do you do? And he's like, just open your mouth and start babbling, and the Spirit will know what you're saying. And I'm like, what?
Based.
What? And this is coming from like this Presbyterian, very low key, and I'm like at a Pentecostal church with a rock band. And I'm like, what is happening?
So the Presbyterians don't do rock?
Not typically. No, you don't have band. You don't normally have bands at church. We had an organ. We
Okay.
had an organ and a piano. It was very,
I mean, you do the organ hard enough.
dude, it was very,
I've heard some Bach and Rachmaninoff on that organ.
a
It was
mighty
pretty,
fortress is our God, man.
dude. That's what I'm saying. That
Yeah.
could be pretty intense.
Yeah, to this day, I can spot a Presbyterian hymn from a mile away just by the way it sounds. Like, even there's some in our hymn books that, and I don't know that I could say them off the top of my head, but I'm like, that is totally a Protestant hymn, you know?
Okay, cool. Wow, that's just so intriguing. Is there anything you miss from Protestantism that you wish we would incorporate in our culture? Or, I mean, obviously not necessarily doctrinal, but hey, who knows? You can always have holy envy, as they call it, right?
Yeah.
So is there anything you miss
Yes,
that you wish
absolutely.
we would incorporate? What?
So, like I was talking earlier, we really celebrated the seasons, so the liturgical seasons. So it was Advent season. It wasn't just Easter. Like, we did the whole thing leading up to it. Like, we were prepping for Easter. We did in the winter, we would what we called hang the greens, where we would hang the stuff in the chapel in the sanctuary, and we would prepare it for winter. The colors of the banners would change based on the time of year. Like, there was just a lot of emphasis on the liturgical calendar and not focusing on Christmas and Easter as one day, but this season of reflection. And I think sometimes we don't do that very well. Now, I've heard some people, I think it was Anthony Sweat that was talking like that we need to do that a little bit better. But
Well, it's been one of Luke Hanson's. Well, it's been one of his. I don't want to say
well,
gripes. but
is
one
that
of his,
like in other countries? I would assume it's very similar. Like in
well,
the
no,
Catholic rich
wanting
countries
wanting to have like more of a liturgical calendar.
Yeah.
Is one of Luke Hanson's consistent critiques of our culture. And actually, I got to say, the only real critique I've ever had is I thought one of the greatest hypocritical snafus that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter Saints ever had was in reaction to the sexual revolution of the 60s. We started pressuring our youth to be worthy to be sealed the same day they were married in the temple. And I think that was a misstep, because not everybody's a freaking Puritan. Like, sometimes you have to be able to make it, like, get married and then get sealed later. And that was the norm all the way up until, who was it? Howard W. Hunter was not married to his wife in the temple. Gordon and Marjorie Hinckley took 7 years from the time they were civilly married to the time that they were sealed. I think Thomas S. Monson was the first president of our church that was actually sealed the day he got married.
Yeah, and before it was, now that you can do both the same day, right? You'd have to wait a year, which was the norm in other countries. Actually, a lot of countries didn't recognize the civil, or didn't recognize the temple sealing, so you had to get married civilly first.
And that's good though, because how can you say that, oh, we're the most pro family church out there, but you got to wait outside this building where we don't tell you, like what? Like, first off, we do tell you. There's nothing secret. There's only sacred.
There's nothing secret.
It's this weird cultural.
Yeah,
it's this weird cultural thing where somehow they thought that, like, the mere mention of this was somehow a divulgence of something sacred. It's like, no, down in LA, you hear people bantering in the hallways about what the deeper significance of this is. Like, I don't know where this, like, Utah culture-ism came from, right? Like, you have dudes straight up going, like, esoteric, who used to be Hindu.
Oh my gosh.
We not Hindu. We had converts, dude, Jerry Consulian. I will never forget. Jerry Consulian escaped the USSR as an Orthodox priest because his faith had been outlawed. You know, I mean, he's an Armenian refugee from the USSR. He used to wear all the robes of it was either Orthodox or Greek Orthodox. I can't remember, but I just remember that the USSR had basically outlawed his faith, and he was a religious and a political refugee from frickin' the Soviets.
Yeah.
So for him, like, robes of the priesthood ain't nothing new.
Nothing. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and hearing his testimony every Sunday, he would just get up with his big bellowing Middle Eastern, like, I want to share with you, brothers and sisters, in his accent, an escaped Armenian from the USSR who converted to our faith, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I just think when our church reacted to the sexual revolution of the 60s and started conflating marriage with sealing and putting pressure on young couples to do the same, they established a social norm that was undoctrinal and, frankly, in my opinion, not pro-family for families that weren't all Mormon. It was convenient for all of the normal families where a Mormon girl is marrying a Mormon dad. It's like, okay, fine, we're getting married in the temple and yada, this and that. Everybody can go because we're all endowed members and stuff like that. But for part member families, it was heinous. You would get girls who had converted, and then their parents and their fathers, and like these Latino cultures that would, where it's like a huge thing, a father, you know, giving away his daughter to a man that he trusts in this wedding ceremony. That's been stripped from these people. And we're not offering any kind of alternative other than saying, oh, well, you can walk around the lovely grounds while they're doing this ceremony inside, and the guys are like, well, I want to see what it is. So they go to the internet, and it's nothing just but anti-Mormon garbage and filth. And I was like, you guys handled this the worst way possible for freaking 40 years, for 50 years, from 1964 to practically, well, not 2024, but for 50 years, that was the most mishandled thing. And it was because culture was allowed to influence doctrine instead of doctrine influencing culture. And that's how we got the stupid curse of Cain in the first place.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That's how we got, it was because we allowed Protestant curse of Cain culture to infiltrate Mormonism instead of allowing Mormonism and Joseph Smith's come one, come all, regardless of race, color, and creed, you know, instead of letting him and his Christ-like doctrine of come one, come all, we're all image bearers of God, affect the culture around us. We let the culture around us affect us. So yeah, I could see why you say I miss having something more liturgical, because having been the North American religion that is heavily Protestant, and Protestantism eschews a lot of that kind of, what some would call Catholic richness or symbolism, or what some might say esoteric paganism.
Right.
You know, we haven't brought it back like we should. We need more Marian worship, not worship, but more Marian regard, respect, and interest. And Catholics are the only other ones that really do that. And, you know,
well, and let me tell you this. So
more liturgy.
This last year, I decided that I was going to kind of go back to my roots, and I was like, I'm going to do Lent this year. For 40 days, I'm going to give up something for Lent. And when I would talk to people about it, they go, you know, Mormons don't celebrate Lent, right?
Why not? Why not do 40 days of a sacrifice for God? Who cares?
Who says we can't, right? Who says that we can't do that? This is a personal thing for me. And it was hard to do. It's something dumb, and you're going to laugh. I gave up soda for 40 days. And I love...
No,
dude, I love soda.
Dude.
Right? Yeah.
People want to say they're not addicts. I had a friend that volunteered with the addiction recovery group. And I got to tell you, like, the purest form of Christianity out there is the humility of some of these addiction recovery guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And one of the first things they say is, we're all addicts. We're all addicts. Always have been, always will be. And that humility is beautiful. And, you know, you hear people say like, oh, well, I'm lucky I'm not an addict. BS. You ever tried to quit sugar?
It's rough.
Yeah, like
it is
BS.
rough.
You don't think
And
you're
you
an
know what?
addict? Try and quit sugar.
By the end of the 40 days, I actually had something to reflect on. It was a personal sacrifice. It was nowhere near the sacrifice that Jesus made, right? But it was understanding that you can make a personal sacrifice, and it is rough to get through.
Okay.
But you can, and it enriched my Easter season so much. And I invited my kids to do it. I invited the priest quorum to do it. Now, I don't know if any of them did it. They probably thought I was weird, but I was like, look, guys, it's Lenten season, 40 days. Do something. I don't care what it is. Give up something for 40 days. See if it makes your season a little bit better leading up to Easter.
Before we go, you guys are listening to, I almost said Jeff Bridges again, Jeff Borders, author of the Antichrist Playbook. If you guys want to see more bonus materials and more with Jeff and I, check us out at wardradio.com. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. I know like 50 or 60% of you do not subscribe to the channel, but you watch every day, and we're super grateful to have you here. But subscribers really help the channel grow. So please, if you're averse to making an account, Don't worry about it. YouTube ain't spying on you. The government is, but not YouTube. No, I'm totally just kidding with you. But anyway, yes, if you can, please make sure you press that subscribe button and you put the alerts on. You know, touch that little bell icon. Also, if you want to help out the channel, please consider a generous contribution through Zelle, Venmo, or the Cash App. Okay, we're available on all platforms. Or if you want to, be like our boy Court. I want to make sure I got that name right. Yes, be like our boy Court and see if you can't get us something that you can afford on our Amazon wish list. Every little bit helps. So again, plainandpreciouspublishing.com, the Antichrist Playbook, Zelle, the Cash App, or Venmo, or Amazon wish list. See you guys in the next video.